in this recording, we're going to share a lot about how hospitality professionals can tap into the power of AI. We're going to get into some screen share, some demos, but I want people to get to know the person that will be teaching all this, understand a little bit about you and your journey. Tell us a little bit about your work today and a little bit of what you have done over your career that has led you up to your work today.
Josiah, thank you so much for having me on the show. It is such a pleasure, and I think some of the things that we're going to talk about today are in line with where your head's at, because you keep this punishing daily schedule, which I very much appreciate. If you're listening at home, like, you guys maybe don't realize how much work goes into this stuff, but it's really hard to produce a podcast once a week, let alone once a day. So thank you for having me.
That's fun.
Just a little bit about my background is I'm 45 years old. I've been doing this for around 20 years. I started off as a bartender. My last shift was at a bar called Death and Company around 2010 or so. That's when I first started my business, producing events, working with cocktail bars to develop menus, train staff. And I still do a little bit of that kind of work today. But today I run an AI and automation business that serves hospitality and service businesses, called KMS, Kinetic Management Systems, and I have a 7-year-old son, and I was like, you know what, he's only going to be 7 once, and so I kind of have been spending the last couple of years reverse engineering a very short work week that has been, incidentally, a lot more productive and more profitable than working the 70, 80 hours that I was working before as an independent business owner.
I love this, Jason, and we're going to get into a lot in our recording here. But I think just, I want to spend a moment kind of just pausing on that for a moment, because I think, you and I spend a lot of time on YouTube. We're looking at kind of different people building different things. Sometimes I get the feeling that, hey, this is all people are doing. They have 80 hours a week to tinker with AI. That's not most of our reality, right? Whether you're a parent, whether you are, managing the busy reality of running a hospitality business, most people don't have all day long to tinker with this stuff. But the reality is they also don't have unlimited time to kind of do all the work that a hospitality business typically requires. So that's what we're going to try to get into in this conversation, is how do you thread the needle there? How do you put the power of AI to work for you? And it sounds like this is something that you've been kind of digging into recently.
Well, there's so much noise out there. And it's typically a lot of people selling information products that are like, this is how to change your life with AI, or this is a document that you need to buy. This is a course that you need to go, that you need to take. But where I start with almost all of my clients is just taking a simple inventory of what is important. What do you do? Spend a couple hours or maybe an hour just being like, every week I do X, Y, Z, and then maybe breaking up those individual things into much smaller pieces. And a lot of the times, a lot of people just don't understand that most of those processes can be automated or deleted is even more efficient. But a lot of people do stuff that just does not matter. It does not mean anything at all. And
I was going to ask you about that, Jason. Is like, kind of, what are you hearing when you're sitting down with these folks? We're recording this in spring of 2026. Are there common themes that have emerged where people say, hey, like, this is what I think is important, or what's bubbling up in these conversations?
A lot of it revolves around marketing. A lot of it revolves around some basic operations. And the through line that I'm seeing, and I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus here, but the through line that I'm seeing is just some basic accountability and basic delegation. The AI is astonishing, and I would advise people to use it in a way that's more in depth than just asking Siri for things or just asking to write an email. But honestly, the principle of addition by subtraction is far more valuable. So, like, just identifying the things that you just should not be doing. Like, for instance, making your schedule every week. You shouldn't be making your schedule every week. You shouldn't be worried about posting every week. You shouldn't be worried. Like, a lot of my clients don't even answer their phones anymore. And this is in the interest of serving their customer better. But things like AI have like completely changed. Even like a month ago, I wasn't advising people to use voice AI, but now it's there. It's good to go. Everybody should be using it. But there's just, everybody has a different workflow, but a lot of times it's just this kind of lack of willingness to let go of control over certain things. And it's frustrating sometimes, because I was that guy. I had a bar and I failed and it did not go well. And I think it was in large part because I insisted on controlling a lot of the different elements that I didn't need to control.
I mean, that is a timeless thing. It feels like that so many of our listeners and viewers are going to resonate with, right? It's just like that is a timeless kind of human nature thing. And I think we're going to get into some exciting applications of AI and technology, but it's important to think about what's not changing, right? So there's that human kind of desire to control that I think many of our viewers and listeners are going to resonate with. But there's also some kind of fundamental things about hospitality businesses and discoverability. So reviews matter, taking care of your guests matters. Voice, you talk about voice. A lot of people still do want to make some calls, right? And you need to think about this. So some of the ways of whether it's discovering your hospitality business or engaging with customers, that's still out there. I do want to kind of pivot a little bit and talk about kind of maybe some of the things. And if we can screen share, we can kind of navigate this however you'd like. But I wonder if we kind of get into maybe a workflow or something that you've built or are kind of looking at that might help those that are viewing and listening understand kind of what this could look like. This, the power of not maybe automation, but maybe it's something more than that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like you were touched on this before, but there's like three major conversations that happen in a restaurant. There's the before conversation, like before somebody has ever visited you. There's a conversation that happens when they're with you, which is I think should be the entire focus. And then there's a conversation that happens afterwards. And so what we're doing is we're using pieces of software. This is a piece of software called High Level. I offer this as a service, but you can get it by yourself if you want. Go highlevel.com. And what you do is you kind of input the information that it needs to know to have a conversation with your guests before. So like when they're and this is like building a flywheel around your business. It's really important to that the systems that you build compound on each other. But again, like this is there's this kind of fallacy about like building efficiency for the sake of efficiency. Like it should be solving a problem every single time. And if it doesn't solve the problem, then you need to go back to and fix it. But like one problem that you solve,
Jason, if I could just kind of jump in there. I mean, I want to underscore that because that's so important. I think sometimes with the capabilities we see of AI or some of these tools, it can be like I'm just going to go and kind of poke around with the kind of the capabilities it has. But you're saying start with the problem, like identify that first.
100%. And I'm like the king of shiny objects. I'm just like I've bought every course, I've bought every document, I've tried everything, and honestly, it just creates a lot of clutter. You have this like kind of garage sale of shiny objects. You're like, okay, cool, I have all this stuff, and things should be working out, but you're like, then you look at your P&L and you're like, well, none of these changed anything. But what we found are a couple of key different things that are really important, which is like the discovery experience, which is how you communicate with people online. There's nothing more there's nothing more valuable than word of mouth. After that, press is extremely important. But after that is SEO and discovery. And so a lot of people they really sleep on their Google search profiles. Their Google business profile is probably one of the most important things. You can spend an hour on it a month, and just like here's just a piece of advice: without software, without having to buy anything, go into your Google business profile and write out your menu, like literally, and copy and paste your menu, because people are literally searching for the thing that they understand near them, and Google will prompt them. It'll say, here, are you looking for this? Are you looking for this? Remember, Google is a relevance engine. So the moment that they are no longer relevant, then people are going to stop using Google. And so it is in their interest to help them find you, but you have to associate the products that you sell with something that they already understand. So like a lot of times, like I come from a cocktail background, and a lot of times we have these like heady names for cocktails that don't really necessarily have anything to do. But if you associate that thing that you have with something that they understand, and I use this example a lot of people hate this, but it's like if you associate a tequila cocktail with it's similar to a margarita in that it's X, Y, and Z, then Google reads that word margarita. And when they're looking, and when Johnny Appleseed is walking down the street and saying, "Hey, I'm looking for something light and refreshing," then Google is going to be like, "Here's a margarita near you," and it's going to pop you up on the map. That is by itself probably the highest leverage hour of marketing hour of a month that I can imagine. I try to take it a step further than that and connect my Google business profile with a review engine. We'll talk about that in a second. But the idea is that you can communicate with your customers before they get to you. And that is oftentimes the difference between them going to you or not. And it is wildly competitive out there. It is crazy. I mean, I live in New York City, and the restaurants are just stacked up on top of each other. And so like you'll hear all these people just oh my God, the internet is so full of people kind of like me that are just like, this is something that you should do all the time. And it's really hard to differentiate between like, what is that thing that I should be doing? But like the nerds on the internet will agree with me that fix your Google business profile is probably the single highest leverage thing that you can do.
It's so true. When I'm traveling, it's always I have Google Maps up. I'm exploring a neighborhood. I mean, it is hard to overstate the importance of this. It's true with Google kind of legacy discovery, but also with AI mode and stuff like this. It's like, I mean, this is just kind of feels like you can't lose by doing this.
Right. Well, and then the second thing that Amazon has been training us to do for the last couple decades is to read the star reviews. And so I think every business owner today knows how important the reviews are, but also responding to the reviews is equally important. And that's also an SEO opportunity that we found with a client of mine that has a Mexican restaurant in Miami. Is that when you can stack without being kind of overbearing, and what they call keyword stacking is you can just mention the things that you have, and then Google parses that information and then serves that as a relevant response. And so like asking for reviews is a big part. We can automate that. Replying to reviews is a big thing that we can do with that. But all this ties into discoverability and then the 3 conversations.
Do you want to start there, Jason? Like, I wonder if you want to talk a little bit about that review process, or would you rather start somewhere else? Like, that piece is fascinating to me. Of kind of like, how do you get more reviews?
Yeah, so I like to connect my clients with a marketing enabled phone number. And what happens is either we, that's the public facing phone number. It's on their website. It's on their Google business profile. And then we respond to any questions that they have. And it's basically 5 questions. Like, I lost something. What do you have that's gluten free? How do I get there? Is there parking? Stuff like that. Like really basic stuff. And so what you can do is you can train your AI, whichever software you're using. But again, this is high level. And you train your AI on your tone of voice, on your menu, and all the stuff that you have, and then you can create these customizations that do handoffs. And so what we do is we record every phone call, and just for quality assurance, just to make sure that everything's being responded to correctly, and then we get a digest email every time that we receive a phone call. And what we're doing there is we are making sure that the AI is responding efficiently and effectively in your voice and answering the question, and then also, most importantly, like, we don't want to sacrifice the feeling of hospitality, is that we're handing off phone calls to humans if that is indeed what is required. But what I found in thousands of phone calls with many clients is that that this is in the better, the guest is coming around to preferring this response because they're getting an immediate answer, and also we are able to trigger on things that people say. So like when they say, I'm looking to make a reservation, we're like, okay, cool, we'll go ahead and text you the reservation. You want to hear what that sounds like? All right, can you hear that?
I can't. I think there might be something in our Riverside instance that's holding you back. But yeah, what's going on here?
Okay, so what happened was a caller called in. The client called me and was like, "We're getting so many phone calls. We're a tiny little bar, a restaurant, and we need some help. And we just can't pick up the phone anymore. And we're looking for something that can help commute some of those conversations into either text messages, which can be handled by AI, or we're looking for it to transfer to a human being when we are available to receive the call." And so what was happening was they were being pulled away from service, from revenue generating activity, to answer questions. And these aren't dumb questions. I mean, these are important things that communications with clients. But what we're doing is we're commuting phone calls, which is people's preferred method of communicating, and then turning them into text messages that answer all their questions. And now that it doesn't, like, people know that they're communicating with an AI. We don't hide it. But after the phone call, within, like, we know that when people call, that it's an extremely high intent activity. Like, as in, like, when they call this particular restaurant, we know that they're going to show up and eat at the restaurant. And so within
Right, Jason, how do you let them know that they're talking to an AI? Is it like a little message at the beginning, or what?
I mean,
How do you do
if
that?
they ask, if they ask, we'll tell them. But it's clearly
Okay.
an AI. It's clear. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so like what ends up happening is that after the experience, after we've sent them a text message and they have the information that they want, then we'll follow up with them, be like, hey, how was your experience on a scale of 0 to 10? How likely would you be to visit Pacific again? Now that's known as an NPS survey, a Net Promoter Score, and that's the numbers are really important. They're really relevant because they tell us exactly how people think, and then and how people think about their experience. And then, it's a good number of people actually fill it out. And then if they leave a positive review, if they are like a 9 or a 10, then we ask them for a Google review. And so like what this ends up doing is we just send them a very quick, simple link that prompts them directly with the review. So they don't have to search on Google Maps. They don't have to search for it. They just give you a star rating, and hopefully a quick little narrative. And then that leads to more reviews. And so this is kind
So
of
these are reviews on Google, is that right? Or this is more of like an internal survey?
these are Google reviews. So what I'm showing you on the screen
Wow.
is how we
Okay.
track actual Google reviews. This is a live client. I protect my clients' data, so I just want to make sure I'm not sharing anything. This is
Yeah.
pretty anonymous, but yeah. So this is an example of how we're tracking like the average rating score, how that changes over time. The total reviews in a period. I'm very proud of these numbers. And they, this is not to say that they don't do the work in the restaurant, but we are asking quite a bit. And so we tracking sentiment. We're tracking sentiment over time. This particular restaurant has 63% positive sentiment, 3% negative, 34% neutral. And so this is, we time this out so that we are making sure that we're responding so that it appears to be something that a human would do. But we've responded to 412 reviews in the last 30 days, I think it is. And then let me just show you just a little bit about how we respond to different star ratings. So like one size does not
And
fit
just
all.
while you're pulling that up, just for our audio listeners, so more than 800 reviews, incredible kind of scores, an average rating of 4.71, right? So you think about volume, and I used to work at a kind of a review analysis software business, and so you just see the importance of this across. You talk about discoverability. You talk about, we did research with Cornell. There's a correlation with pricing power in the hotel business, and it's just like we even worked with investors, and this was kind of part of kind of like how they underwrote deals. But you kind of think about the power of this. Like these capabilities were not possible before, and this matters a lot for how many people are showing up at your bar, your restaurant, your hotel, and in your pricing power in many cases. So this is amazing to see.
Yeah, there's a causal relationship between revenue and reputation for sure. And it's kind of irritating because it's like you want the service to speak for itself, you want your product to speak for itself, but people, yeah, and this is like I don't have any data to back this up, but people kind of decide whether they're going to like you um, before they walk in, and then they like it's set in stone in the first 90 seconds of walking through your door. So this is a way to kind of seed the psychology a little bit to hopefully rig the game a little bit so that people have already decided that, oh my gosh, this place is really good, and they kind of second guess their own. People, we've outsourced thinking for a while, and I'm not saying that people are stupid, but I'm saying that people like have decided long before they actually walk into your bar. And like, we're also looking at competitors, not that matters too much, but we want to see what everybody else is doing. We want to see how we're differentiating ourselves in the market. And so we look at the four, this is, incidentally, this is 4 restaurants within in the neighborhood. They're clearly not playing the same game as us. And that is what people look for when they see, when they're looking at a cluster of maps, because Google is not going to recommend just your place. They're going to recommend all the places around you. And so if you stand out, even on a small percentage standpoint, like then people are going to decide you over your next place. And
Well,
so
Jason, I mean, just to put a point on this, I think like this, when more and more travelers, more and more people who are looking for bars and restaurants are turning to LLMs to do this, and one of the big inputs they're looking at is the kind of third-party credibility signals, and reviews are huge for that. So reviews have been important; they are important for people on Google Maps. In an increasingly kind of world that's discovery is driven by AI, this is even more important. So it's like it's really hard to overstate how important this is.
yeah, and this kind of this ties into how you respond to reviews. Like, you can't just set an AI loose and be like, I want you to respond to everybody like you're an AI. It doesn't work like that. And like the difference between a 4-star and a 5-star review is night and day. I mean, it's literally a difference between staying in business and going out of business in some cases. And so, in my view, if you're not a 5-star review, it's a service recovery opportunity. It's like, how do we become a 5-star review for you? And thankfully, people can go back and actually change their reviews. Google's gotten better about spam reviews and like and bot attacks and stuff like that. But it's really important to note that that you should not be responding to reviews in the same way for 1-star reviews as 5-star reviews, even if you're doing this manually. And so we like to make sure. I don't want to show this because it's I don't want to expose the data, but it's we make sure that anything below a 4-star review delivers a way to make it right. And so, like a lot of times, like the review responsive will be anonymized. There'll be something that happened that went from 4 or 5, and we want to make sure that we are mentioning to people exactly what we're willing to do to make it right to get a 5-star experience. And that's just probably a matter of personal pride for a lot of your listeners, but also it makes good business sense to putting your email address and say, hey, this is like we are not a 4-star place. We are a 5-star place, and we're going to do what we need to do to make it right.
Yeah. So Jason, zooming out here to kind of recap what we've gone through. So, a lot of our listeners and viewers are going to say, hey, like this review collection process is important. What's new here that you're demonstrating is there's automation, there's sort of AI that is, I'm hearing kind of this is going out to more people more consistently. Is that sort of like what the power of AI and automation at work here?
Yeah, this is a thing that does not break. It does not take vacations. It will never be a bridesmaid in somebody's wedding. It will never be hungover. It will always be showing up, and we time it out so that it doesn't feel like it's automated. But I think that it's again, I think this is what people are coming to expect. And these are we've set up 5 different specific profiles for this specific client about how they like to respond to each of the 5-star reviews. So 1-star reviews get a specific tone of voice, like as in like apologetic, like what it's very specific about to this particular restaurant based on what they're willing to do. But it's very, very important that you respond to reviews, because if Google sees an absentee owner, then they're not going to think that you're as relevant. And there's no people here. It's all robots that decide this. But it's responding to reviews is almost as important as receiving reviews, in my opinion.
Well, Jason, I'm thinking about going back to how you thought about when you're working with a client. You kind of sit down and you talk about kind of what's going on in their business, and it seems like this is the investment to be made now. So you have like, I mean, that's great that the AI is running just at all times. But what I'm hearing from you, and my belief is that you have to be very thoughtful upfront of how do we want to engage, right? So spending more time on the initial process. Does this match our brand? How we want to engage? You talk about kind of different responses for different levels. And so there's not like one universal playbook that's going to be phenomenal. You have to really think about your business, how you operate. And this is the work you're doing with clients, right? It's some investment up front, and then you have it kind of running on autopilot.
Yeah, phase one in engaging with me is the beginning and after conversation. Phase two is like what happens inside of the restaurant. Like what are we taught? Like how are we communicating to guests? How are we establishing what every employee is empowered to do to save a relationship? That kind of stuff. This is made famous by a guy named Sean Finter. He's got a framework called Napkinomics, and it's absolutely phenomenal. It just like literally on a sheet the size of a napkin, like anybody in your restaurant should be able to articulate the things that are on this sheet. I highly recommend you check it out. Napkinomics.
Interesting. I'll include a link in the show notes. So interesting. There's a big play here around reviews. What about I'm thinking about just communication, and I think kind of what about kind of missed calls? Is there some kind of an opportunity here with like a kind of texting or some way to engage? And if so, kind of we were talking a little bit before recording about kind of missed calls. What do you do there?
This is such a gimme. This is why we set up a marketing enabled phone number, is because that missed calls are where your private parties are booking. This is when people are talking about problems that they have, and if you're not responding to them really quickly, and I would say probably preferred to be automatically, then they're going to think that you don't care. And so, we've got a couple different versions of this, but when people call in, we like everybody's going to get a text back automatically, depending on the laws of the state. But we make sure that everybody gets a call back, and we want to know how their call went. Even if we received the call, we want to make sure that there's an asynchronous piece of conversation that's happening with every one of our guests, and that we're there for them 24/7, 365. And so this comes in the form of just a missed call text back, but oftentimes this will come in the form of, like, even if we receive the call 7 minutes later, are we texting back being like, how was your conversation? Like, did you get what you need answered? And having it like kind of a redundancy in the service level, so that they feel confident in their choice to reach out, because they have so many options. And we just want to make sure that we care the most.
And speed matters, right? And I think kind of speed shows care. Speed is service, right? And so this is kind of the power of automation. You can be more hospitable. You can run a more profitable business when you're just faster. And I think it's interesting, kind of talking through this with you, is you can engage and use AI through voice channels, through texting. It seems like however people are wanting to engage, there's a solution there, right? And you're thinking about these core channels people want to interact with you.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's just really important to note that the consumer psychology is shifting. It used to be like kind of ick to talk to a machine, but we are not seeing that at all. We're not seeing that. We're seeing that. I mean, I track hundreds of conversations a week, people are very much warming up to this thing, the idea of this kind of not now, right now mentality, where they're getting what they want right now, even if it means talking to a robot. And again, we've been trained for this. We've been trained to do this for decades, to expect this kind of level of personalization and quick service. And I think that I think it's just it's only getting better. It's only getting better, and it's only getting easier to implement. I mean, I've onboarded a client in 20 minutes, where it's just like, okay, cool. Now your phone is working. You've got the AI receiving all your phone calls, and if anybody doesn't want to talk to them, then your phone is gonna ring.
I wonder if you could walk us through, Jason, what are some of the hesitations or the kind of barriers to this sort of thing? I think one thing that I've heard is my guests don't want this, right? So you're seeing data, you're seeing you just pulled up on the screen a moment ago, just like all these hundreds of interactions, super high satisfaction levels. So that feels like the data doesn't support that kind of concern. Are there other concerns that you're hearing that I think our listeners should be thinking of, like maybe that's actually not a thing?
Yeah, it hasn't been my experience. So I've got my clients are range from dive bars to full service, like really trendy, fancy restaurants, and everybody gets the same stuff. And we kind of alter it, we change it, we change the tonality. We never lie about it. We never say that it's not an AI. We never say that it's this is I just think that people are just coming around to seeing this technology. Yes, we get a couple people from time to time. They're like, "Oh, for fuck's sake, it's an AI," and and like that's fine. Like the prevailing logic for all that I offer all of my clients is that like 20% of your people should love you to pieces. 60% of them should be fine with you and accept that you're there, and then 20% it's okay if they hate you.